have some talks lined up, starting with Snyder here to talk on how to fly your drones legally and safely. Going forward, there's exhibits. You go up the stairs and on the left. And in the meantime, here's thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Morning, everybody. I use the mic just to make sure that anybody else that comes in will sit in the back and we'll know what they're hearing. So, plan today is kind of update on what the research is that we've been doing here at NC State in developing an unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, drone, call it whatever you want to, ecosystem for the state. And when I talk about the ecosystem, I want to talk about how do we create jobs, how are we recruiting companies, how are we getting things ready for this. We're working with the FAA on regulations, standards development, and all that. We're getting lots and lots of flight hours up. The team's got about 200 hours of flight time now over the last 3 years. But we also want to talk about some of the services that we're offering now through the university to make sure this industry does continue to grow here within the state. And then we'll talk about what the state's doing to meet FAA regulations and all that. Since Charlie gave me a full hour, I'll make sure that we've all got plenty of time for interaction and discussion, and we can drill down kind of wherever you want to go. So feel free to jump in anytime. We've got plenty of time to kind of cover as much as we need to. The Next Gen Air Transportation Program, NGAT, is an office here at NC State. It's the office I'm the director of. We are focused on modern aviation. How are we getting more aircraft up in the air? How are they all connected? How are we doing GPS-based navigation instead of radar-based navigation? And it's really this whole next-gen transition program that the FAA's modernizing air transportation over the next 10 years. It's been going on for 10, 15, 20 years now. Our focus when DOT called us up and said, okay, we need NGAT to focus on the UAS program and get us a UAS ecosystem. So that's what we've been working on now, to get rules in place, to get all the structures in place to allow for FAA operations. So we started flying March 21st, 2013 was the first flight part 2. We started flying out of Hyde County Airport, way out east. And since then, like I said, we've got about 800 flights, 200 hours of flight time under the FAA Certificate of Authorization COA program. And that's the public aircraft waiver that the FAA's provided us, and us as NC State, to go do specific operations, specific aircraft flying, specific location, and that's even started to change here over the last couple of weeks. We are established as a consortium here at NC State, so we're a partnership of industry, government agencies, and other academic institutions. And Jen will be here shortly from East Carolina, and they've joined into the consortium. So this is a paid membership organization where we offer services back to our members, but is recognized by the university as a consortium. So we're all working together with a common goal of modernizing aviation in the state. The best news we got was May of last year. The FAA selected our team. We're part of the Mississippi State-led team for the FAA's UAS Center of Excellence. So NC State is now on the FAA's radar as one of the leaders in UAS integration for the next 10 years. That's a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewable to follow that before it has to be recompeted. So for the next now 9 years, we're going to be working very closely with 21 other schools, and we'll talk about them here in a minute, nationwide that are accelerating and tackling all the tough problems for the FAA. And that's us as NC State, and as NC State, we are the command and control leader for UAS integration. If you can define command and control as just about anything you want to, it's communications, it's autonomy, it's cybersecurity, link security, data link development, radio management, spectrum management, all those things fall into C2. So we got a lot of really cool topics we're tackling, and a lot of opportunity to propose more ideas to the FAA of what else can we do here. So one of our industry partners is Precision Hawk, so that's our team flying the Precision Hawk aircraft. Like I said, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Division of Aviation inside North Carolina Department of Transportation. They're the ones that started us, they're the ones that got us going, and they continue to support us because we support their UAS program office, so we'll talk about what the program office is doing in a moment too. And then Golden Leaf got us off the ground literally. Here's the baseline equipment and a grant to start doing UAS research for agriculture, especially focusing out east. And so we've been flying with Gold Leaf equipment now and using their stuff for the last almost 4 years. I really won't go through each one of these individually, but the applications for drones for unmanned aircraft is growing by the day. More ideas, more creativity, more imagination, and really that's the only limiting factor right now. Why do we use these things? It's just I haven't come up with the new, latest, greatest idea to do it. So this list is a very kind of government-centric list, but there are now 5,100 approved exemptions that the FAA is allowing for commercial operations. So they're tackling these things and a whole bunch of other stuff, whether it's real estate, aerial photography, mapping, surveying, lots and lots of things. We're doing some traffic monitoring. The one up there in the top left is actually flying over a solar farm, and you can see the cell that's dying. So this is before it's actually died. But the one that's popped out there with the white patch is the cell that's about to go bad. So now if you can fly over your big solar farm and you can find out which one is about to go, now you can run out there and fix that before the whole circuit goes down. The one down here in the bottom right corner is from White Sands National Park. USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey Office, was flying out there. They're actually doing a research project, and the winds kind of blew through just right, and they revealed mammoth footprints. So you could actually see how woolly mammoths kind of track through the area. So you're getting dinosaur footprints before the wind comes and blows and covers them all up again, because you've got a small, portable, backpackable, easy to launch system to get that aerial view. So now you can see animal behaviors for animals that have been gone for tens of thousands of years. So lots of really cool stuff going on, and really back to the imagination is the only limiting factor. In order to fly today, big scope requires an FAA waiver or an exemption. The blanket rule that says, okay, anybody wants to go fly an unmanned aircraft must have these certifications, fly this kind of aircraft with these kind of rules is not in place, but it's coming very, very soon, sometime in the next 6 weeks. In the meantime, certificates of authorization are granted to public agencies as a waiver to go fly. So that's what a COA is, or commercial companies apply for a Section 333 exemption. So that's the exemption from having to have an airworthy aircraft, which is how the FAA approves for flight operations today. Is yes, you are a certified airman meeting an FAA standard for certification for your pilot requirement, and you're going to fly an aircraft that's certified. Well, the exemption says, we know these are small UAS, we know you're going to take on all the liabilities of the operator. Your operator will still be an FAA pilot, but the aircraft doesn't necessarily have to be certified airworthy. If you're flying your certificate of authorization as a public agency, it means you're flying as a public aircraft. So you can self-certify your aircraft as airworthy. You can self-certify your pilot as meeting a standard that you as a public agency says is sufficient. Almost all operations today are line of sight, and that is line of sight unassisted by binoculars or anything like that. You can wear glasses, but you must maintain line of sight of the aircraft for flight operations. There are a few specific exemptions. There's always an exception to the rule. It says, yes, we can go fly beyond line of sight, but those are research projects the FAA is approving, or commercial operations in restricted locations, such as the Arctic, where we're not really worried about hitting people or other aircraft. So line of sight today, COAs today, up until about 2 months ago, were aircraft specific, location specific, and SOP specific. So if you wanted to fly as a public university, you had to say, okay, I want to fly this aircraft at the NC State Lake Wheeler Farm, and we'll use these procedures. So the FAA would say, yes, you've done all your homework, yes, you're good to go. Your pilot, you can decide what that standard is. If we were going to fly at Lake Wheeler, we'd say our standard was having passed ground school. If we were going to go fly at Hyde County Airport, when we were doing a lot of our research out of Hyde County, we were flying on the airport property. Our minimum standard for those flight operations was you had to have at least your sport pilot license. And so we can graduate that as a public university. We can say, here's our requirements for each of those locations. If anybody's flying today, anybody's flying any aircraft today, the aircraft has to be registered. So if it's a hobbyist flying for giggles, they still have to have their registration number. A hobbyist registration number is good for their entire fleet. You go online, you fill out the online form, Boosh CFA shoots you that, and you'll have it immediately. It says, okay, this is your registration number, so that you can go Sharpie it on all your aircraft or go print out license plates if you want to put them on every airplane. But that is your hobby registration, that aircraft is registered. And that applies to the updated rule the FAA just came out with that said students flying for classes are flying as hobbyists and their aircraft must be registered. Again, it's online, it's a hobbyist, they're good to go. If you're flying for research and you're flying under a COA program, your aircraft has to have a UAS registration number, which is essentially an N number, just like a tail number on a Cessna 172. Again, that form is online now, and those are being published. It says, yes, here you go. So if you're flying research or you're flying under your commercial exemption, you must have the UAS registration number. Hobbyists can get their hobby number. And those rules continue to evolve and change over 6 months, but they're pretty well settled now. But those are the two methods for anybody flying today. There are, like I said, 5,100 approved commercial exemptions today nationwide, 80 to 100 or so within the state of commercial companies out that are allowed to go fly and meet the FAA rules for that. We talked about where they're going, so the FAA in the next 6 weeks is going to open up Part 107, which is going to provide a much broader definition of what are needed to go fly. They did announce 2 weeks ago that students are allowed to fly in classroom as students, as hobbyists. Teachers that are doing research, faculty that are doing research must still go through the COA process. Part 107 will change a lot of that, but those faculty will still be expected, if they're doing research, to go through this process or still go get a COA. So that says small aircraft only, so 55 pounds and below. Line of sight operations, daylight hours only, flying below 500 feet was the proposed rule. We'll see if that stays or when it comes out it's 400 feet. We're not exactly sure. No reckless and careless operations, so there's still lots of subjectivity there for everybody to interpret what they need to try and defend their position. And it will be one aircraft per operator. So no swarms flying. I know Mihai's dying to go fly swarms, but we're going to do one-to-ones for a while yet. The operator requirements, the FAA is defining a new UAS operator license. They don't have that right now on their books that says, yes, I've gone through whatever the requirements are to say, yes, I'm a certified UAV operator. So think of it like a sport pilot, a private pilot, an instrument-rated pilot. We're now going to have a UAS-rated pilot. It's probably going to look a lot like ground school with some instrument training, but no actual time needed of putting your butt in an airplane because you're not flying that way. You understand the rules of the airspace. So that's going to be rolling out here this summer. How that gets implemented, of who can teach that, how do you get qualified for that, will come out when the rule comes out, and that's what we're all waiting to see as a community. It says, is that flight schools are going to be training and checking that out? Can anybody train? Is it an online thing? And you say, yes, I've taken all the tests. We can do that. So we're going to see where that goes. And you must be 17 years old. So the 14-year-old that went on to Amazon, bought his $1,000 Phantom and wants to go charge for services to go look in roof inspections and look in your gutters and tell you your gutters need to be cleaned out is illegal. That's still just not going to be allowed today as a commercial operation. But the whole deal with that is the aircraft is still not going to require airworthiness. The pilot's going to be responsible for the flight operations. So it'll have to be a registered aircraft. They'll have to do a pre-flight inspection and some of those requirements to it, just as a safety checklist or advisory checklist, and we'll talk about some of those best practices. That's where it's going, and yes, and the FAA confirmed it again 2 weeks ago at the big Unmanned Systems Conference. It's sometime in the next 6 weeks. The rules should be rolling out there, and that's hopefully open up the skies to even more people. And as long as everybody's responsible and safe, then we're being successful. So our operations today, we have a new type of COA. The FAA just rolled out about a month ago, 6 weeks ago now, the blanket COA. So we now have nationwide permission to go fly small UAS below 500 feet. And that's we NC State. And so we're working on what that rule is and how the university is going to roll that out university-wide. We have a Section 333 exemption, so we can do services nationwide too. So we can do research and services. pretty much wherever we need to. If we need to fly within 5 miles of an airport, under those restrictions, we can go to the airport manager and get permission to do that. We're actually working on that right now north of Concord, or north of Charlotte, looking at doing a traffic monitoring project there outside of Concord, where we'd be flying within 5 miles of the airport. So we've been working with the airport manager there. I've kind of oversimplified the state, but if you take the 72 little freckles there, that is the 72 public airports in the state for an awareness of where are those 5-mile rings. And you can see that the state's pretty well covered, that you've got to make sure you are doing that coordination. The circles are big commercial airports. The boxes are the restricted airspace. I exaggerate on the eastern side of the state, but it's really not too much of an exaggeration. Most of eastern North Carolina is covered by military restricted airspace. Our research interest here in our office, our airspace integration, every time we fly, I get data that says, yes, small UAS are routine and need to fly more often. I love boring flights and all that kind of stuff. But that's what we like to see. We like to manage where were we flying, what were the weather conditions, any other traffic. We're getting all that and said, yes, there you go. These operations are safe. We've done the agriculture thing, so I've got lots of pictures of corn, lots of pictures of wheat. We're working with our soil sciences folks, and I'll show you some of those pictures here in a little bit, of the applications of UAS for ag. We're doing a lot with surveying and photogrammetry, learning more about that than I ever expected. But looking at how good is the imagery coming off of these things. Does it meet photogrammetry grade engineering imagery? I talked about C2 being our focus for the FAA Center of Excellence, so we're starting to build up those capabilities and looking into more autonomy. And then we also do airworthiness analysis, as we worked with our aerospace engineering folks here to develop a process for evaluating the aircraft and say, yes, that meets an NC State standard for airworthiness. We can go fly this aircraft under our plane control. We offer flight operations, data analysis, program development for organizations, whether it's Wake County Emergency Management has joined our consortium. They're saying, what can we really do? What can we expect out of these small systems? So we've taken our Inspire out with them and done a couple of search and rescue type missions to help them get ready for how to go get their COA or what they need to do to get ready for Part 107 so they can go fly. So they're saying, okay, we're looking at this and okay, line of sight means we can only see maybe a quarter mile down range. The aircraft's only got a 20-minute battery, which means it's really only like 10 minutes, 15 minutes on station. Without a thermal camera, you're not going to see a lot. So they're understanding that. We're helping them with, okay, here's some of those rules, here's some of the best practices, and here's some of the other, some imagery coming off of that. It's been really helpful. Data management's also a big deal for us. We want to make sure that we're capturing not just mission data as far as what's the imagery, what's the photography, the video we're pulling off, but also understanding the rest of that context of what's going on in the airspace. Are there other aircraft in the area? Are we maintaining solid data links? Capturing all that telemetry so we can see, yes, here was our pre-planned flight plan, here's what we flew based on the telemetry, and then here's what we saw at each point throughout that flight, so we can give all that to anybody that wants to audit and say, okay, what are your privacy plans? How are you actually managing that? If we're going to have a public agency like a law enforcement operation stand up, they're going to want to be able to say that same kind of audit trail. And that's our data structure for doing that. We pull as much information as we can off of the aircraft and any other feeds that are coming into it during flights. And then we push it out 2 different directions. We've got an industry partner that's given us one of their mission caster boxes. So if our team is out flying right now with, say, the Inspire or Puma, one of our bigger aircraft, we could pull it up live right now if they were flying really anywhere. Using an LTE signal, they actually push everything up to the cloud. We can pull down that video right now. At the same time, we also push everything off to a mission manager that says what is going on, what are those weather conditions, what's the other traffic, pull up the common operating picture, and keep up with both of those data sets as part of our data management. Some of our imagery, like I talked about, we fly at the NC State Lake Wheeler Farm, so just 5 minutes down the road here. We go off on the backside. We've done the photogrammetry and survey work, so I've got lots and lots of pictures, high resolution photogrammetry looking. We've actually added ground control points and a bunch of other pieces into this. So this is a stitched picture. It's a little fuzzy with projectors, but we could definitely zoom in and look at this and get this down below below 1 foot resolution is pretty easy. Still flying with the UX5 from Trimble. We did a project with one of our construction companies that was trying to figure out what do we get, what do we expect out of this. We went down to Wilmington with them, and they've got this area that they're going to put in a new housing development, so they've kind of got everything cleared off right now. They said, well, let's go fly this. So it's about 150 acres. We got it all in one flight, about 40-minute flight with the UX5. And seeing the whole thing, so this top picture here on the left is about 800 shots. That we then scanned together, ran through Agisoft, is the software processor that we use for this one. We actually use both Agisoft and Trimble Business Center. But you can see the point cloud then that was put together as we started doing the development there and the analysis to end up with the digital elevation model there at the bottom. Like I talked about with the soil science research, working with some of our folks there out of the College of Agriculture to say, okay, here's some nitrogen plots, which is what we were doing down here at the left, out at the Vernon James Research Center out in Plymouth as we go out east. But then we've got these live plots here on the top right that are going on right now out here at Lake Wheeler, so we've been flying over those about once a month with the Inspire camera that we put a multi-spec near-infrared camera onto. The Vireo flew the shots down here on the bottom. That's about a 3-pound, or a 3-foot wingspan, about 5-pound airplane. Also over here at Lake Wheeler, we had the Leica hexacopter. So that's about a 3-foot diameter aircraft. We strapped a Nikon D5200 onto the bottom with an 18mm pancake lens. And we shot these pictures there at the SECREP facility, which is the kind of the erosion lab up on the left side of Lake Wheeler as you head south. And so these are overlaps, looking at how good of the resolution is that, how much overlap do we need, how much can we really shoot in one flight or in a series of flight. So again, these are all stitched pictures using Agisoft to kind of look at that resolution and give that back to DOT to say, does this meet your standards for photogrammetry projects? And the basic, where we're at now on that is DOT is saying it doesn't meet our photogrammetry standard. The imagery is good, but it's not good enough to give us the resolution or give them the resolution they need. So we're writing up that report right now as part of an inspection tool project, so that report will be available later this summer once we get the DOT release on that. One of our consortium members is an insurance company. They said, you know, how's an adjuster going to use this stuff? And you see a lot of insurance companies, State Farm, USAA, a bunch of them have gone out and gotten their exemptions. A bunch of small firms have gotten their exemptions so that they can do exactly this. Put the tool in the adjuster's hands, let him go out to a house and say, do you have hail damage? Do you have other issues that are popping up? So we went out and we did the same thing. We took our Inspire, a $3,500 system, pulled it out, and flew around one of the houses here at Lake Wheeler. It's student housing, had all the permissions we needed from the university. So we flew around. You could see some of the cracks, you could see the damage on the dormer. And then we took that same imagery, ran it back through the Agisoft stuff, and started doing some of the 3D recreation. The Inspire is a 4K camera. We weren't really planning to do the 3D reconstruction. So there's some holes in there and some gaps, but it's actually a useful tool for doing that if you need to get there. So we haven't gone back and revisited that, but at least we just kind of took a hack at it and tried it real quick. Talking about the Center of Excellence, so this is, like I said, the Mississippi state-led team. But we are the command and control lead, and then you see the other 21 schools on the team here. Lots and lots going on. We're meeting monthly. The FAA loves where we're at. We're about a year into it right now. The first round of projects is all in the middle of execution right now, so there's going to be a bunch of reports coming out of the team later this year. But you can see we really did kind of spread it all the way across the country to make sure everybody was engaged and there was an opportunity there. We do have 2 of the official test sites, so the North Dakota team and the and the Alaska team are 2 of the 6 test sites the FAA selected that are part of the team, and we'll do most of our flying at the test sites unless there's a reason not to, which is why we're working on building up the CTU capabilities here in the state, because then we can keep everything here. but that's if we're doing flight research under the Center of Excellence. We're not doing that on our first project. New Mexico State has the unofficial test site, and they are still part of the team too. But lots of fun on this team. This team was intentionally built because it was a team that could work together. It wasn't just a bunch of super smart people. The 4 teams that proposed, the FAA really couldn't go wrong from that perspective. They were all very powerful teams, very knowledgeable teams, but we made sure that we were able to work together. So most of us have all been working together for a while now. First project we're working on and leading is a surveillance criticality project, and we're not talking surveillance and from a spying kind of surveillance. We're looking at it from air traffic management, aircraft traffic surveillance. So, okay, if we're all out there broadcasting, we're all carrying ADS-B or TCAS. Do those systems that were designed as manned aircraft traffic alerts? So, whoosh, okay, you've got traffic up. Pilot is still responsible for maintaining separation. How do those work in a UAS detect and avoid environment? Do these systems that were manned decision aids meet UAS design assurance criteria? So we are looking at those failure modes. We're looking at the scenarios when they work, when they don't work, when UAS will be flying. Right now we're focused on big UAS, so kind of Predator class flying up in commercial airspace. Not really worried about the low altitude kind of stuff. We're going to transition there so that the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world can start doing package delivery as these technologies get smaller and start enabling. So we're looking at the failures, doing full failure mode analysis, hazard analysis. We're going to take all that, push that back through some simulations down in every riddle, pull together the community, talk about that, and then come up with a decision of whether or not these systems meet design assurance to do UAS detect and avoid. So that it's not just a decision made for the pilot to maintain separation. So that's our research. We talk about our services, some of the homework that we've been doing, the structures we've been putting in place to help with our consortium members to kind of spread the message. We've been putting together a series of best practices, and we'll be publishing these later in the summer too, through DOT and also posting on our website. One of those, the first one off the bat there is expectation management. If somebody's getting into this world, what do they need to be thinking about? The first question with that is always, what is your mission set? Don't be wowed by the sexy, flashy aircraft. Just because it's cool and it's new and everybody's got one doesn't necessarily mean you need one. What are you trying to do? That will determine which one you need. Do you need a fixed wing? Do you need a rotorcraft? What kind of sensors do you need? That, again, is decided by the mission, not how big the aircraft can carry a camera. It's what are you trying to accomplish. So we try and walk a lot of our clients, our partners, through that process of what are you really trying to do? What is your mission set or sets before you even start thinking about the hardware you're going to purchase. If you are flying one of these, you are flying an aircraft, so you're putting an airplane in the airspace, whether that's 2 inches off the ground, 50 feet off the ground, 500 feet off the ground. You've got an aircraft in the airspace that medevac helicopters use, crop dusters use, general aviation, private pilots, commercial aviation, everybody uses that same airspace. There are rules against that. There are rules required to go operate in that airspace. No matter what altitude you're at, if you're outside and you're in the air, you're in the FAA's airspace. So we try and relay that message as much as we can. We talk about equipment life, we talk about the documentation requirements that are in place and needed, not just at the federal level, the state level. Your organization wants to make sure you're keeping up with your logs and all that kind of stuff. And we built a lot of this through our operating procedures that we've got kind of standardized with all the checklists. So things to kind of step through both pre-flight, after flight, during flight, and understanding kind of what's going on in your mission area, so that you know that even when we were out flying with Wake County Emergency Management and getting them ready to think that the unmanned aircraft requires 3 people to go fly. So you got your pilot, an observer, and then a sensor operator. And all 3 of those have to work together with the rest of the team that's kind of doing the mission. So we're putting all that together because these aren't just hobby flyers out there having fun. As you're identifying who those people are, what are their requirements? What are their requirements for your agency? What are their requirements per the legislation and the laws? So we kind of walk through each of that. We do recommend that flight teams really do consist of at least 3 people. And you do want a pilot. You should have an observer. and then you'll have a data person on board for every flight, and that may be a different person. One day you may be doing an agriculture mission, so you'll need an agronomy kind of person. The next day you may do a search and rescue thing where you're operating a thermal camera, you need somebody that's got some thermal training. But understanding that those are the pieces, what are the training requirements necessary in order to keep flying. The policies then too that we recommend, especially for our public agencies we're working with, here are some of the things you want to make sure you've got in place so that anybody wants to come do an audit, or when you're a public affairs person saying, yes, we have a drone program and here are the rules we've got, here are our policies that we've got in place to kind of fill out who's doing what, how are they doing it, what are we doing with their data, and who gets what access, putting that structure behind the program. The data management we've talked about, but being able to track that throughout the flow, understanding who has permissions where, who's involved, who's seeing what, so that an organization can't just say, well, we're not keeping the data. What do you mean you're not keeping the data? You're not storing the data. It's coming off of the aircraft. No, we just don't keep the data. Well, you can't prove that either unless you've got the policy in place and you can show that, no, this is how we always fly. This is what we always do with our data. And we do recommend that if somebody is standing up a UAV program, that they do have a specified outreach practice to work with the community, work with the public, work with their other constituents to say, yes, here's what we're doing, here's what we're trying to do, here's what the aircraft is going to be used for, here are going to be public access days. We saw this 2 weeks ago. The Department of Aviation up in Virginia co-hosted a drone day event where they brought out a bunch of their exemption holders, a bunch of their public agencies, and did some flight operations out on the coast under their exemptions, under their code. So it is doable, but always making sure that we've got policies in place, structures in place, and it's documented so we can, one, protect the airspace, two, protect the citizens that are going to be flown around. So because we've been so successful, because we've got so much going, because this industry is really growing as fast as it is, the North Carolina Department of Transportation established a UAS program office about a year ago. And that program office is designed to really support that education, support the safety of the airspace. So kind of here's their responsibilities, here's what their mission set's going to be. And we support them from day one. The UAS program officer there, Chris Gibson, is actually an NC State grad. He's an aerospace engineering grad, so we've got a really, really good relationship with them. Just kind of their reminder of where they sit and where the FAA sits. The FAA is the ultimate authority here. So no matter what rules we put in place, the FAAs are still the prime rules. But as we move into managing government agency operations at the state level, there are additional things that we can put in place to help them with their management. And then hobbyists are still required to do the hobbyist stuff. Some of the laws that are on the books at the state level, and we're going to do a little bit more analysis on this summer, looking at some public policy work, but that it's against the law basically to use a UAV for criminal purposes. But there are also requirements here that's highlighted, is that if you're going to operate within the state, you must pass a knowledge test that says you understand the state laws that are related, and to receive a permit to operate within the state. So that is everybody that's flying except for hobbyists can go fly as hobbyists. But if you want to take the test so that you know what you're doing, you can take the test and get a hobbyist certificate off the website. What else they have on their website? They've got some best practices also, just some knowledge fact sheets to kind of make sure that anybody that's getting into this and they land on the DOT page first, they know where to go. What are some of those requirements, just like the FAA has on their UAS page. But they've got the updated website now that provides the opportunity to go take that test. So if anybody is flying in the state, you've got a commercial, one of those 100 companies or so that has their commercial license, you are required to have passed this test before you go do operations within the state, even though the FAA is giving you your commercial exemption. You can go in the state, you can download the study guide, sit there and study the study guide if you want to, or open study guide in one window, hit the test button in the second window, and do the open book test, as we know students are preferred to do. To get your permit, and there are the 3 types of permits, like I said. They are the commercial permit, the government agency permit, and a hobbyist certificate to say, yes, I know what's going on, but I'm just operating as a hobbyist, recreation. There's also the fact sheets. Seriously, the knowledge test, I don't have any of the FAA requirements. I'm not a pilot, but I took the knowledge test and I was done in 10 minutes. So it's really not very difficult. It's all there, the study guide, and my team helped them with, okay, here's the stuff that needs to be on this test. So we gave them a bunch of that background data and really kind of helped build this out. So it's kind of cool to take a test that we wrote. And then here's what your permit looks like. If your permit, and you've taken this and your permit doesn't look like one of these two, then you've got the hobby certificate that's really not good for anything. Some additional resources. So to start with, our website's been updated here at NGET headquarters at NC State. The DOT page, actually back to our stuff, so we are kind of keeping up with news and events, recent things that are going on. We're going to do a big community event here at the library on June 27th. That afternoon, so we're going to get that public announcement out next week. We just set that date beginning of this week, working with library folks. So anybody wants to know what's going on, see kind of where else things are going, work with some more of the industry folks on all this, we'll be upstairs on June 27th. Our program office for the DOT is here. Like I said, it's got all the fact sheets and taking the test. The FAA does have their UAS program page. They also recommend going to Know Before You Fly. So if anybody's itching to go fly, you can hop on the Before You Fly website to kind of make sure that you're fitting all those boxes and you've got your definition of where you are. From that page too, you can also download the Before You Fly app, which is the FAA's app that says, okay, I want to go fly right here. What do I need to be aware of? Like when we go fly at Lake Wheeler, we can hit the app and it's going to pop up that there's 3 heliports within 5 miles, 3 miles I think, of where we're at. We still have our COA, we still have our permission. We don't have to go talk to any of those folks. We made sure we've got all that structure in place. AUVSI, the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International, is the big trade association for all this. There was a little more than 8,000 people from this industry at their big conference 2 weeks ago down in New Orleans. A good show. The exemption holder map is maintained, so that's where you pull up, if there's somebody or you've got a project you need to do and you want to find somebody local, that's another place to go do it. So there's folks that are keeping up with that database. Here's my contact information and DOT's contact information. Kind of cover everything, and now I'm open for questions.
That slide deck going to be available somewhere?
Yeah, we are all these slides are going to be available somehow. Charlie will get them out to everybody.
So we posted one with the video on YouTube, or we can move from the main site.
Cool. I'll be posting with the video on YouTube. If you don't get it, just shoot me. I get it. So the minimum weight is if it's less than half a pound, it does not have to have registration. Actually, the little bitties that fit in your palm, yes, those are fine. If it's more than half a pound, it has to have registration. For everybody. If it's a hobbyist with bigger than a half a pound, it has to have a hobbyist registration. But if it's commercial, then it has to have the commercial registration number.
So anybody that goes to Walmart and buys
Buys an air hog that weighs more than a half a pound, just have to go get a registration.
yeah, but you were saying they want the community.
There should be a hobbyist number that you will get your hobby number that you can write onto all your aircraft.
But anybody going to Walmart and doing something less than half a pound,
If it's less than half a pound, it doesn't need it. Right?
but you said it needed a hobby number.
If it's less than half a pound, it doesn't. So your parrot drone weighs about a pound, so every parrot drone will have to have one. Yeah, it's the absolute little bitties that are less than half a pound. You're cleared to fly those. Yes, sir. For indoor, the indoor is up to the facility owner that determines whether or not you're allowed to fly. For FPV, is it okay if somebody watches you or not? So, FPV for commercial operations and co-op operations is not allowed. FPV for hobbyists is still allowed. Do you need a spotter for a hobbyist? No. But if you were going to operate commercially, the case could probably be made to get your exemption, that if you've got a spotter, you can still. How do you take the pictures of the crops if you don't see what you're looking at? Right, and that's what we do with the hexacopter. And most of our operations are really autonomous. I mean, most of the time, my pilot is flying like this. Because everything's pre-planned. You launch the aircraft. Here's where our shots are going to be from. But that's a commercial operation, right? If you're doing a bridge inspection or one of those kind of operations, more than likely your head is down and you're seeing what you're looking for, and that's why you've got to have the spotter doing the airspace separation.
The inherent model association
Yep.
requires a spotter. It's a local.
Right. Yep, the AMA does require spotters if you're flying it. Many people have done it without it, but yes. If you're not flying under AMA, the FAA requires a hobbyist fly under a community standard. So if your community is AMA, that's great, they've got their standards published. If your community is a flight club, you're going to have some set of rules there too, which may or may not require an FPV spotter.
Yeah, nice talk, Kyle. Like, before the question, I wanted to say this is very nice that your organization puts all this together and keeps up, because this is extremely confusing. So, and I'm gonna ask you, is there any whiff or wind of proposed rulemaking or something regarding the minimum bar for safety features on aircraft of various sizes? Like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, between this and this, you either gotta have a parachute or you gotta have a soft landing or a fixed wing or something like that.
So those standards are evolving quite a bit, right? And what those requirements are going to be are evolving very frequently too. And there's lots of opportunity to still shape all of that. And I'll talk about that from a perspective of one of the other Center of Excellence projects that's going on right now. They're looking at small UAS impacts on the airspace, both operationally, if they fall down, if they crash into another aircraft. We're looking at what is the real damage of a small. And looking at that, parachutes are being tested. The actual weight of the aircraft to say, what is that kinematic damage going to be, to help influence that. I'm looking for people that want to get involved with the standards development from that side. Because that's just not something that kind of piques my interest, so I'm just not doing that. Yes, things are changing to where I think we're going to get to a point, but even below, there's going to be some weight there that if it's below 5 pounds, that they're going to be clear to go. And we're seeing that, I think, with the small UAS, because they're looking at a micro rule, and the Center of Excellence team has been called to weigh in on what is that definition of micro. Is it 2 kilos? Is it 1 kilogram? Where does it fit? And it's because of those things that the research teams are looking at and saying, yes, do we need the parachutes? Do we need to have, what's frangibility mean? Does everything need to be made out of styrofoam? And it's all on the table for research right now. And that includes geofencing. It includes go home procedures, and I made friends with the NTSB since the first of the year. I never could have expected to do that, but we took our hexacopter, we did a non-standard takeoff. Right, we were holding it up and said, hey, everything looks good, let's just go ahead and run up the thrusters, or run it up to full takeoff power and then hit launch. So we did that. And the aircraft was like, this isn't good. And it tried to reset back to start, which should be 0 and on the ground, but it was 6 feet off the ground and full thrust, so it took off. And it flew up to about 5,000 feet just down here at Lake Wheeler, where my COA is good to 400 feet. The batteries ran out at about 5,000 feet, and it basically auto auto-rotated back down, straight down, and all six rotors popped out the bottom of the aircraft, so I've got a rather large paperweight sitting back in the office right now. The first call that I got that afternoon was from NTSB saying, was this you guys that had the crash? Because we'd had a flyway. We couldn't recover, we weren't pulling back, so we called RDU and said, we've got a lost link flyway. Like, oh, just let us know when you've found it or heard from it. I'm like, well, by the time we're done with this conversation, it's crashed, and sure enough, it had. And it stayed on NC State property and flew about a mile downrange, and it didn't hit anything except the ground, so it just came straight down. No property damage except for the aircraft. So, but in looking at that, we're looking at, how did it come down? Because it didn't just tell it to come down as a lawn dart. But we're trying to take that data to say what else needs to come into these things, what else do we need to be looking at from that standards piece. And the OEM came back, the manufacturer on that one was like, you know what, we never thought anybody would actually try and do that, so yes, we probably should have put in some of those fail safes. But it was just kind of one of those things that they just hadn't thought through it to stop. Or put in an altitude ceiling that this aircraft should never fly above 500 feet or 1,000 feet. It's all still just, we're at that point in the evolution.
You mentioned the airworthiness that we have to abide by.
Yes.
State. Could you tell us what those requirements are?
So our airworthiness requirement, and these are different per public agency, and different universities have different processes. We've taken what the aerospace engineering folks here put together. It's called a system level airworthiness tool. We've taken that and developed it into a diligence inspection process to look at the technical data that went into the aircraft design. Said, okay, why did I pick this rotor? Why did I pick this structure? Why did I pick this this autopilot? Look at that, take all that data and say, okay, we think it's good. Then we'll do an inspection of the aircraft and say, yes, you did build what you said you were going to build. Evaluate that as a package and say, okay, it does meet our baseline standard. So we do all that, we put all that together in about a 10-page statement of airworthiness that we submit to the FAA and say, yes, you're good to go. North Carolina Emergency Management has applied for their COA. They've recommended for the UX-5, the Trimble airplane that we've been flying. They just took our statement of airworthiness and said, it's good enough for NC State, it's good enough for us. But I know other schools have said, the manufacturer says it's airworthy, therefore it's airworthy, we're good. And the FAA's accepted those. So for us, we like doing a little bit more hands-on, a little engineering analysis behind it. Just as yes, we've looked at it, but that way we can take a custom system and do an analysis of it. It needs a serial number that we can refer to, whether it's the autopilot or some kit, to say yes, we're talking about this aircraft specifically. That's how we're going to register it and do that analysis. But yeah, we'll look at kind of the entire package there, and we've done that. The senior design bird, or actually the Aero Robotics Club here, put together an aircraft for one of the competitions 2 years ago. We took that aircraft and sent it through the airworthiness process and the COA process the FAA approved it too. So a custom student designed, student built aircraft has passed our airworthiness. Yes, sir. Not quite hearing all that. Right, so how do we design a system where we can fly multiple aircraft at one time? All of ours so far have been one aircraft, one operator. So, right, we talk about a system, and we talk about the system being the aircraft, the sensor, the operator. That would be our system. Multiple UAVs are another challenge the FAA is trying to get their arms around, especially as we move towards the Google and Amazon models of package delivery. That will be multiple aircraft into the airspace, operating from a mission manager station. Right, the swarm interest and all that is where I look at this guy. The legal way to do it is at one operator per aircraft. And we can do that. We can get to that point. We've got to develop the rules for the separation or fly inside. And you've seen a lot of people do that so far with the little smalls, but even then, it's not so much the aircraft are doing the decision making as when you got all the camera systems and all that kind of set up. That's how they'll control the swarms. But when we move outside, we can get to the point where we've got multiple aircraft, multiple operators operating in the same airspace. That will require additional approval from the FAA to operate more than one COA at a time, but we can get to that. And that's what Amazon's looking at is, okay, if we're going to have our fleet of aircraft out to do a package delivery, not only is it going to be beyond line of sight operation, but it will be one guy managing 4 or 5, or 2 people managing 4 or 5. Okay, I'm the guy until one goes contingency problem. Now I'll hand that over to the contingency operator. But all of those different structures are being tested now as part of the Center of Excellence and the test things.
Another question is,
Sure.
so these systems is about control system. About multiple.
Yep. Right. Yes. The Egypt air. Yep. If air traffic control is receiving how much of this data, not just aircraft location, but what else is going on within the intention of the aircraft. The more of that we're sharing now through the next gen world, and that's where system-wide information becomes invaluable. So how much of that can we distribute throughout?
Any coordination with the EU's working on the FAA to ensure that this will be seamless as they adopt and improve?
Right. Any coordination with the EU and EASA? Yes. So they are all part of the standards committees, and the FAA is starting to pull them in now with more of the Center of Excellence research. So there is more sharing there, not just on the regulations that are being developed with research too. That's in action to make sure that we're not duplicating. So there is a lot more connectivity. I wouldn't say it's as efficient as it needs to be yet, but it's getting there. It's better.
And that is one entity, the EU, or is it all separate FAA?
So through ICAO, there's multiple players. EU's involved, Australia's involved, and within the EU there are multiple. The UK's doing their stuff, so it's multiple agencies, and even NATO's kind of looking at big picture stuff. And we've got several representatives from the Center of Excellence team, the Assure team, that are sitting on international standards committees. Any other questions? We got.
Sorry, Mr. Green, thank you, but how much does FCC play involved?
How much does the FCC get involved with this? Good question, because it's not in the slide. You didn't miss anything. The FCC is involved from a spectrum management role, and as we look at flying commercial spectrum, and all of our operations are either 900 megahertz or 2.4 gigahertz, commercial open bands. So the FCC looks at what else. What are you going to fly? So when you put in your COA request, it will say I'm going to operate at these bands, and some of those are DoD frequencies. So the FCC says that, well, if you're going to go fly at those, you better show us a DoD permission to use those bands. So they're tracking that quite a bit. From a C2 perspective, looking at alternative communication strategies, whether we're using satellite comms, cellular-based networks for C2. They are very, very involved now in these research and standards committees to say what else needs to happen, how do we protect those channels. As we look at using emergency management frequencies as a possible C2 link, FCC's been asking a couple questions there too. So they're tracking closely. They're letting FAA take the lead, but they work very closely. Last one.
You have to have a hand radio license for the higher power do.
Yep.
So I don't think a lot of people.
A lot of people do not understand that. Understanding spectrum management frequencies is an art form. There's no doubt about that.
Black.
A black art. Yeah. All right, I'll be around for a little while longer, and like Charlie said, the slides will be posted. And if you're interested in the June 27th meeting, let me know. I'll take a card or shoot me an email, and we'll hopefully give you another update a month from now, which maybe we've got a Part 107 rule in place and everybody. Thanks again for the invitation.